Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be discussing, beginning to discuss Season 7 here of My Little Pony, starting with the first episode, Celestial Advice. So really quick, if this is your first time joining us for an Equine Episode Examination, we record these usually on Tuesdays around 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you want to come and participate in the discussion, if you're watching this recorded, that's when we do it at CinemaQuestria.com. Here, pretty much what we do is we're going to discuss the new episodes here of the show here throughout Season 7. And kind of give all of our thoughts, opinions on them, maybe analyze them a little bit, and just have pretty much a group discussion here about it. So it's not really like a single one of us like just spewing a review. We're just going to kind of have a discussion about what everyone kind of thinks, what they liked, what they didn't like about each episode here. Both with us here, a few of us here on the call from the CQ staff here, as well as everyone in the chat as well, of course. Participating in the discussion. I'm Rain Shadow, by the way, and I have a couple people here in the call with me.
What's up, y'all? I'm Mr. Bang.
This is Jay Smith.
And I guess we'll start off just really quick before we actually get into this with just some more logistical things going on here. So this is quite the different kind of premiere than we're used to talking about here on the show. Normally, of course, with a premiere, it's a lot more to talk about, going pretty long because it's usually a two-parter, with a part 1 and part 2 episode of a continuous story. But for the first time here in the history of this show, we've had an opener that isn't a two-parter, and this is, of course, only the second opener or closer, premiere finale for the show that hasn't been a two-parter, with the other one, of course, being Season 3's finale. No, excuse me, Season 1 and Season 3's finale are both, of course, one-part finales as well. So, obviously, we haven't discussed Season 1, so the only other one we've really discussed is Part 3. But, of course, this is also a little different because even though it is technically a two-parter, not only are both episodes sort of connected story-wise loosely, they're both individual stories, but they were both shown on the same day. So this is really the first time we've ever had two episodes of the show that weren't, one continuous story on the same day. So that kind of presents a little issue for us here, being that we do have another new episode coming up this week in terms of actually discussing this on a weekly basis. Usually, of course, with the two-parter, we could discuss them all in one show because it's technically one continuous story that's, 44 minutes long, just split into two parts for, TV reasons. But with this one, even though the episodes are related in a lot of ways, and we will be kind of referencing both through our discussion, they're really still separate episodes. They're continuous, just like a lot of episodes in a season are continuous, but they're standalone stories. So it's not really going to make sense for us to talk about this two-parter or this, these two episodes at the same time. We're just going to be going back and forth between, completely different ideas. And we were waiting to see how much these episodes actually connected before we kind of decided what we're going to do. And they don't connect enough to really make sense of talking about at the same time. So if we were going to talk about them at the same day in the same episode of here at Triple E, it would just kind of be we talk about one and then talk about the other, and it's going to go on forever. So what we've decided, if you haven't seen already, is we're going to discuss just Celestial Advice today, the actual season premiere, first episode of it, and then tomorrow, since we have a new episode this weekend, we can't shove it to next week. Tomorrow we're going to have a special Triple E episode, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. To discuss All Bottled Up, the second episode of season 7 here, which also, of course, premiered this past weekend. So that's just some logistical things just to make sure everyone knows that we're just going to be talking about Celestial Advice today. So the song and everything that happened in episode 2 we're going to be talking about and saving tomorrow, other than, maybe some things of how they connect. We'll probably go ahead and, for things that we're talking about how the two episodes connect, we'll probably also save for tomorrow, because I have a feeling today's episode is going to run longer than tomorrow's episode will, so we can kind of maybe save a lot of that connection discussion between these two episodes for tomorrow when we have a little bit more time. And I'm sorry, it was kind of a last-minute announcement. It was one of those things where we really didn't know what we're going to do until we actually see what the episodes were. We know they weren't part 1, part 2, but maybe they're still really connected like a part 1, part 2, but they just decided to name them both different things, but they weren't quite as connected, to be able to talk about them at the same time. So, with that out of the way, we can actually begin our discussion here on the first episode here of Season 7. I mean, holy shit, it's been, 7 years now of the show, and we're entering the 7th season of it here, which is pretty crazy to discuss in its own right. But yeah, this is quite the different, initial thoughts here. This is really quite the different season opener. I mean, just like we've been talking about here since the beginning of the show, it's it's not a two-parter, which is a big departure for the show in terms of at least the season openers, and even the closers are usually get those two-parters. So having an opener which still delves into some big continuity and show continuous things. It's not like just a simple slice of life episode or something like that. To have it not be a two-parter was definitely a change of pace. So what are everyone's just overall initial thoughts on the episode, on Celestial Advice?
This wasn't really the Celestia-centric episode I was hoping for, but that having been said, we did get a lot more Celestia than I was expecting to get anyway. So I can't really complain that much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's obviously this isn't a Celestia episode. This has to do a lot more, even though she's not quite as involved in this episode. The whole episode, of course, revolves around Starlight, and they kind of, frame that around Twilight's relationship with Starlight, and then using Celestia's relationship with Twilight, kind of that. So we get a lot of great Celestia moments and additional characterization and backstory for her and her relationship with Twilight, but it's not specifically actually focused on Celestia. The whole thing is more, focused on Starlight.
I loved just the fact that we got some more interaction between Celestia and Twilight. Just a shared bonding experience over the fact that Twilight was Celestia's former student, and now Twilight is experiencing the same exact thing of letting her student go that Celestia had beforehand. And it's really kind of this is one of those moments where we don't get to see Celestia's more unreserved side. This is actually the first time we've seen Celestia just straight laugh her ass off. And it's actually wonderful just to hear Nicole Oliver has Celestia just straight up laughing, not like suppressing a laugh or hiding it behind her hoof or anything like that, but straight full on belly laughing. And that was probably one of the biggest highlights of the episode for me. What was just getting to see and hear that, and I'm like, my grin couldn't have been wider. So.
I've never heard you laugh before. I don't like it. It's too maniacal. It's creepy.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I really enjoyed this episode. It follows the trend of the past couple seasons where the openers seem to be less about, big fights or battles or adventure or anything like that, and a little more character focused. We saw that a lot, especially last season. Premiere also focusing on Starlight and sort of where she goes from here. And this episode continues to go with that. And it was just a really fun, enjoyable episode. And it wasn't a huge episode or a complicated episode really or anything like that. It definitely felt at home being in a 22-minute episode versus stretching it out to a two-parter. It was a different feeling not having a two-parter and having this kind of episode to start out, but it felt right. It felt like the right place to start off at, where we end it in the season 6 finale, and it kind of just picked up right where that left off and started, pushing the series forward and asking some questions. But I'm glad they didn't go for that two-parter because it felt like it was just the right time, lengthwise, for the story they were going for. And it wasn't complicated, but it focused on just such good, great things like we were talking about with Celestia and giving her and her backstory and showing that parallel between her and Twilight and Twilight and Starlight, and giving more backstory into how Celestia's relationship with Twilight was from her perspective. And it did so much in terms of pushing the series forward, but also building some more in some of the series past in a short time. And I just really, overall, just really enjoyed the episode. So with that, let's just go ahead. We'll get started with our discussion here with the story and the writing. So a couple other things and behind the scenes wise of the show here. We have again new story editors. Make sure you do that plural for this season. Joanna Lewis and Christine Sonko both wrote the first 2 episodes of the season, but are also the new story editors, taking over for Josh Haber, who was the story editor for last season. So kind of getting some new ones every season, and personally I'm really happy. Like, they were, after Haber, they were like my next choice of who I think would be really good at leading the show, based on sort of, you know, some of the past episodes they've done and how well they've handled a lot of characters the past couple of seasons, so starting with Castle Sweet Castle back in season 5. And I didn't think that they were going to. I didn't even know if they were going to be involved in the season, because I know they've been heavily involved with the show The Great Indoors on CBS. So I was surprised to see them not only just involved in the season at all, but to see them actually be the story editors. But I'm really excited about that, because I really like their episodes. It kind of following a pattern here of Josh Haber wrote Friendship Games and then was the story editor, and then Joanne and Christine wrote Legend of Everfree and the story for the season. So it's kind of been like a little pattern of the future story editors writing the previous Equestria Girls movie. But yeah, they have a really good understanding of the characters. And they've shown to have, in this episode, a really good understanding of the show's continuity and lore as well. I think that's something that I really was obviously, Megan McCarthy knew a lot about that. She's been with the series since the beginning. That's something I was really excited when M.A. Larson kind of took over temporarily, because I know he's really great with continuity and building that lore. And Haber showed a real knack for it as well in his episodes, and he brought a lot of that to season 6. But they've shown in this episode that they also really not only understand the characters, but understand kind of the story of the situation. So really happy to have them on board for this season and kind of seeing what new things they can bring, because I think that's one of the cool things about the show is they always have like a lot of new writers and staff that they bring in, and I think it does help to keep, you know, the ideas flowing and keeping it fresh. So I'm kind of seeing what Joanne and Christine can bring to the table here. Yeah, the whole little quip from Celestia about, oh, you can always have her send you friendship letters. That was good. I like how they kind of worked that into the whole thing, and sort of how what Celestia was dealing with back in their early seasons and before that.
That was kind of rather tongue in cheek. I did like that. Yeah.
Now makes us rethink all the letters. The whole is a Celestium having Twilight Center letters in the early season.
I think one of the great things I think I really liked about this episode is I really liked the continuity that it had, and I mentioned this earlier in terms of just picking up right sort of where the season 6 finale left off, and kind of dealing with what does Starlight do from here. She's obviously gone above and beyond and proven that she can lead another group of I won't say not all ponies, but of individuals to really take that initiative and was able to save Equestria without the main 6. So it was great seeing that all of Starlight's crew again in this episode. Discord and Thorax and Trixie, of course, as well as Sunburst. It was good seeing him in the episode as well. But it's also great. I really like that they, seeing them get that recognition for their efforts, and especially Discord and Trixie, and sort of seeing how they've, in addition to Starlight, how they've kind of come and evolved over the past few seasons as well. And I really like that, it seems like they're not taking their foot, off the gas pedal in terms of letting the series stagnate or being afraid to push things forward. And I'm kind of interested to see where we kind of go from here in this season. This premiere didn't really seem to, at least from our perspective now, doesn't really seem to set up for much in terms of the season. Like with season 5, we had the cutie map setting up for stuff with that, and setting up Starlight for the finale. Season 6 premiere had the Changeling, so kind of setting up for the Changelings, setting up, we know that there's going to be episodes involving Starlight and kind of her lessons with Twilight. It's kind of interesting to see where this kind of goes from here, because with Starlight now sort of technically being graduated from Twilight's lessons, even though she's not actually like leaving Twilight or Ponyville, and kind of seeing what stories they're going to tell and what that's going to be leading up to, in fact, in the season, of course, the season finale as well. And so, is what kind of story are we going to be looking at for this season? I mean, I'm not saying they have to. I'm just making a comment. But at the same time, I mean, it does seem to be setting up for stuff, but it didn't make it clear exactly, what it is going to, you don't know what kind of, how all the events in this opener are going to play out, because it's obvious that this is a pretty big, another big kind of shift and change and pushing the series forward in this episode. We just don't, exactly know in what way. Like in the season 6 premiere, we kind of could get that Starlight is going to be Twilight's pupil now, and we're going to be seeing, her study with Twilight one way or another, and kind of build her own sort of friends and pseudo main six throughout the season. But yeah, like I was saying, it's nice to see them continue to push stuff forward here, with not kind of resting on their laurels or just kind of continuing with the same thing with here Starlight graduating, even though she's not leaving. It's kind of seeing where they're going to go with that, being that she's sort of pretty much doing this in the same step that Twilight was at when she was sent to Ponyville by Princess Celestia. And it was nice to see that kind of continued parallel directly in the series between Celestia and Twilight, and Twilight and Starlight as well. This episode really, again, speaking to the continuity part, just not just pushing things forward and picking up where season 6 left off, but this episode also referenced a lot of stuff from previous seasons, especially from last season, and had a lot of just continuity from it, between the Changelings obviously still and Thorax being involved in this episode. We see Twilight pondering whether she should send Starlight off to the Dragonlands, and we actually see Ember again, which is a lot sooner than I was ever expecting to see Ember again in the series. And also, of course, see Sunburst as well as the Crystal Empire, and it's just there's a lot of continuity that this story is built around, to the point where you kind of need to know a lot of the series continuity to sort of understand sort of what's going on. And I like that continual building of continuity and having these stories branch off, not just some arbitrary story, but branch off of things that have happened in the past. You know, both in the previous finale and in what happened last season as well. Yeah, it's kind of like, now without drifting to character discussion too much, I'll also echo what Radio Dog said. I think Spike was fantastic. I love snarky Spike, and that kind of snarky repertoire he can have with Twilight at times. And it doesn't really surprise me because I think Joanne and Christine are two of the best Spike writers. Of course, they wrote Gauntlet of Fire last season, which is probably the best Spike episode, and of course also wrote Castle Sweet Castle back in season 5, which also was a really good Twilight and Spike episode as well. So they really are really good at writing Spike, and both this and the second episode, All Bottled Up, he had some very good moments in. I think he had a lot of snark, but I think all of his snarky points were well deserved, because most of them were kind of in response to Twilight sort of having these continuously more outrageous sort of fantasies of what could potentially happen if she sent Starlight away.
Starlight Glimmer is the most apt and precipitous pony. Yep, definitely Twilight fantasy.
Yep, definitely. And that's what I'm talking about. It's really, it's not just Spike being a dick or anything. He's Spike making very kind of tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic comments based on stupid things that Twilight's doing.
Twilight, I don't think Starlight and Ember actually would act that way, but they could. Oh, I love that. Funny enough, I could actually see both Twilight and Ember actually doing that, just because, since going off of what we know from Ember the last time we've seen her, I could definitely see that actually happening. Anyhow.
And it was nice to see kind of Twilight doing this sort of overthinking, overreacting stuff that she's done many times in the past before here. It was very much something that she would overthink given the situation.
That's what really kind of surprised me a little later on in the episode, because we know that Twilight right there was doing that, because that's just typical Twilight. But the reveal that Celestia did exactly the same thing, that was what came as a surprise to me, and something I never expected Celestia to do. I don't mean to get into character discussion or anything like that, but just the way that writing just kind of comes as a reveal that, hey, Celestia is far more like Twilight than we had originally thought possible, was just a nice little twist.
And going back to the continuity, because this is something I find myself going back to in that story, Celestia's story episode. I just liked how that was also sort of more continuity with Amending Fences from season 5 as well. You had all of Twilight's friends, even Moondancer and everyone there in that classroom, and it was nice seeing that them all there from that episode, kind of providing that continuity to the show.
I love it when they do continuity callbacks like that, not just to season 1 or anything, but just to other episodes in other seasons beforehand.
And
I love it when they follow that narrative.
yeah, and it's not just like doing a callback because a joke or because you're just to do a callback. It makes sense story wise in the show. It's like you're happy that they remembered that and included that, and they're keeping track of all of that, because it just makes the world seem so much more alive. That if Twilight's in school, yeah, she has all Moondancer and all these other all of her other Philly friends are there as well in the class. Yeah, I think that's sort of why I keep hammering on the continuity in this episode, is because the episode is continuity. I mean, the whole episode is taking all of these things from the past and using that to push the story forward to the next wherever this next point we're going is. Both everything that happened in season 6, everything that happened in the finale, using Twilight and Celestia's past that we've seen throughout the series, from the first, from some of the flashback episodes, where we see Philly Twilight, to what we saw in the season 1 premiere, to amending, the flashbacks and amending fences, and just throwing all this all into a pot and just naturally helping it kind of progress the story forward. It all seems so natural. It doesn't seem forced or anything like that. It just seems, it makes sense that all these points are coming and converging on this one area here to get Twilight to sort of graduate Starlight and trying to not push her away, but make her, have her go out on her own like Celestia did for her. Yeah, I think Tim kind of hits it on the nail there. It's not some grand, huge, spectacular episode in terms of bombshells or action or anything like that, but it's a very, very important one narrative-wise for the series. I liked how this whole episode is kind of like pseudo messing with some of the Starlight haters, not intentionally, but kind of sort of like getting hyped. Oh, they're gonna send Starlight away, and it's like, LOL. No, just kidding. She's staying. Deal with it. By the end of it.
I also kind of get the feeling that again the episode kind of is doing a bit of a bit of a jab at fan fiction, because the whole thing of Twilight, it's just mental images, just kind of seem to be writing out play out as badly written fan fiction.
Hey, Mr. Ben, there's no wrong way to fantasize.
Ooh la la and all that,
yeah. Twilight strikes me as the person that would write a lot of fan fiction.
Yeah, she probably would. She probably already has too.
But I am kind of really interested in terms of where they're going story-wise with Starlight in this season. Just because, where do we go here from now? We know that she's not, leaving. She's not going to some other place because, like Twilight did. She's going to still be around the main 6 and Ponyville, but she is sort of, she is graduated from being Twilight's pupil more or less. And it kind of makes me wonder kind of what things, she's going to be getting into and doing this season, sort of what their plans are for her. And it's not something we can really comment on or really speculate on even. It's just kind of, I can't wait to kind of see where they're going with it now, because it's not like she has to be with Twilight trying to do any lessons or anything now. Maybe she's gonna have some stuff where she actually does go out and do stuff on her own or with her friends. Yeah, I don't really consider Starlight to be a main six character, a main character, but she is a strong, a very strong secondary character, almost like a 1.5, kind of not even, because she's obviously very important to the show now and very involved in it. But you're not going to necessarily see her doing everything with the main six or anything like that. She has her own. She gets along with she's really good friends with Twilight. She gets along with the main six, but she has her own friends now that she's going to be doing this. No, I hope no one's expecting her to be suddenly with the main six all the time. Like, I know a lot of people were kind of expecting that last season as well. So she has her own friends now.
Yeah, Starlight kind of. I was kind of wondering back when season 6 was starting, with when she was being accepted as Twilight's pupil, that she would be, officially accepted among the main cast. I'm kind of glad that they didn't actually do that in a way, because this actually gives Starlight more space to be her own character rather than just another part of the gang. She's able to actually go out and, starting with Trixie's, going to be able to make her own group.
Yeah.
And it kind of sets it up to make it kind of give its own, how can I say this? It lends itself to possibly maybe giving its own focus, not necessarily in terms of maybe a B spinoff, or in terms of like B plots, but maybe its own little possible spinoff, maybe like a webisode series or something like that. And it's just something that I think might be a possibility. I don't think it'll actually happen, but it kind of leads itself to that particular credence.
I think it's better for her character as well, because if she just became friends with the main six, it's sort of like, okay, because, obviously Twilight is actively working to try and reform her and teach her about friendship, so it's kind of a guarantee she's going to become friends with the main, with the main six somewhat, so it doesn't really mean much. But having her actually go out and last season and the season 6 finale and make her own friends, with her new best friend Trixie and Thorax and Discord, and have all of them go and defeat this enemy, it's much more meaningful to have her create her own friends that aren't just Twilight's friends. It's good. It's very meaningful for her as a character.
I remember seeing a bunch of jokes about Starlight and her friends effectively becoming more of an equestrian Suicide Squad.
That's more or less what the season 6 finale was, just a lot better.
Yeah.
Also, holy crap, I don't really know where to say this, so I guess I'll throw it in the story. That holodeck kind of spell that Twilight does for all those fantasy kind of flash forwards that she does. It was an interesting spell.
Kind of funny how we got all that from Twilight, yet when Celestia kind of got that chance to go back into her flashback, she didn't bother with it. Mm-hmm. And Spike was like, "Are you talking about Twilight? I can't see a thing." Yes, Spike.
Let's see. We can kind of move on. We're kind of getting to it, so we can move on to the characters and characterization, because that's where a lot of the meat of the discussion for this is here. I had a point I wanted to make and kind of forget what it was now. I guess the first point I had is something very thing. Spike. I think Spike was kind of just really, really well written as a character in the episode. It's just he's in his best supporting role here. I think Gauntlet of Fire submitted him as being able to have really good kind of solo, lead episodes with him in a lead role. But when he's in an episode with a, kind of a side or secondary role, this is kind of how I really like to see him in that side, especially around Twilight, because I think they play off really well. And that's the point I wanted to make. Really, was relating to this. I really like the continued repertoire that Starlight and Spike have. We see it in both episodes this weekend, we saw them interacting and stuff. I just really like that kind of repertoire that they have, and we saw that a lot in the season 6 premiere, and I'm glad to see that continuing, because they think they play off each other really well. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Spike's been a lot better. They've matured him up a little bit, and they haven't really had him have too many episodes at all where he gets into that sort of Spike, failure state that he gets a lot in the very early seasons of the show, where they play him off as a little brother, but that's pretty much all they play him off as, and so he kind of becomes the butt of a lot of jokes. They've sort of matured him up a little bit more, and we definitely saw that a lot in Gauntlet of Fire last season. Not that he still can't, be the butt of some jokes sometimes, like any of the characters can, but it's just he doesn't feel like that really younger brother that always gets picked on kind of role.
It's kind of nice to see that he's kind of becoming a little bit more into his own. I always got the feeling that this whole butt of jokes kind of thing was always meant to be a temporary thing, because it's been, it's shown and been made clear that as dragons, grow and become older, they get a little bit more powerful and stronger. And I understand that they're not going to just age Spike up overnight or anything like that. I know they kind of teased that with the Secret of My Success when he was going through that greed growth, but just so long as they do that sort of the maturity thing like what they've been doing, I kind of really like to see Spike kind of growing as a character, and I just kind of want to. I'm really interested to see how he continues to grow and evolve as a character through the rest of this season and even into season 8.
And that was kind of the problem with sort of seasons like the earlier seasons, like especially 1 and 2. With Spike, there was pretty much 2 roles that Spike played normally, and that would either be kind of being the butt monkey and just, getting abused a lot for the sake of visual gags and humor, or whenever he did have a more important part in an episode or wound up getting his own episode, it was more about Spike dramatically failing at something and then learning a lesson about it in the end. So it got to the point where it just seemed like Spike couldn't do anything. And later episodes have revised that as we started getting more Spike episodes where he gets more competent and gets, takes more initiative and actually, especially get to Gauntlet of Fire when he actually does, is actually, very on top of things there, and just is really good in terms of a character. It isn't just him failing for 22 minutes or turning unexpectedly evil like he does in Hell's Well That Ends Well. So I think it's just they've given him a little bit more variety. They didn't really know exactly what to do with him in the early episodes. He still had that really good repertoire and snarkiness with Twilight in a lot of those episodes, but besides that, as a character himself, he was just the little brother, and they kind of weren't exactly sure at the time, I think, of where to take him. I also like the little interaction between Trixie and Discord earlier in the episode where she kind of snarkily like, yeah, you too, Discord, come on. I guess they have this really good kind of connection between them that we saw a lot in the season 6 finale, and I kind of like their sort of magic kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like battle or whatever that they both kind of have between each other. Yeah, I think Dark's right there about Spike. I think that's also one of his best things in terms of how he plays off of Twilight. Is not only snarkiness, but also can really kind of be that voice of reason and really help Twilight out. And we saw that specifically, and really, I think one of Spike's first really good roles in the show was in Lesson Zero, where he was the one that went and kind of got Celestia. He knew that Twilight was over her head, and he took while the rest of the main six sort of just laughed about it and told Twilight to calm down. It's not that big of a deal. Spike knew kind of because of it, how long he's been with Twilight, kind of how much that actually meant to her there, and how big of a deal it was for her, and took her problems very seriously there. So I think that was really one of the best, like the first best roles, really good roles for Spike. And I guess moving on to some other characters, really this episode would have been great just for one reason, and that's just the amount of interaction we have between Celestia and Twilight again. It's just something we don't really see in the show that often, besides maybe a passing sort of speech before Twilight goes off and does something. And it was nice to really have that real personal, emotional connection between them again, and sort of during those scenes expand upon sort of the past relationship that they had, and stuff that Twilight didn't know about Celestia, and we didn't know about Celestia. But it was great not only having them interact, but expanding upon Celestia's personality. It's something that we've seen the past couple of seasons, like in was it Make New Friends But Keep Discord, I believe, the one with the smooze, and it. Of course, we see her, laughing at the end of that episode and saying, "Yeah, why do you think I invited Discord to here?" And we kind of see a different side of her, and we see it again in like episode 100, where she's sort of arguing and bickering with her sister, and just seeing something different than that just real poised, royal status, personality that she has most of the time. And we see that again here, where they're having kind of a more casual conversation with Twilight, and then going so far to laugh about kind of the situations Twilight in, when she kind of sees the similarities that she went through, and just that alone there was really great to see. It's not just Celestia mentoring Twilight, but really speaking to her as more of a friend.
I always find it very interesting, and that we always get to see, Celestia, and I always love it when we get to know her a little bit more, because the show's been going on for 7 seasons now. It's been going on since 2010 for 7 years, and we've only seen Celestia kind of on an on and off basis. The few times we have seen Celestia has never been more for maybe a few minutes at most. So even though we've seen this character and that she's been around for 7 years, we still don't largely know a whole lot about her. Everything, well, not really everything, but the vast majority of what we don't know about her is still largely an enigma.
Mm-hmm.
Her backstory, her how she came to be a princess. There's the supplementary material, such as the Journal of the Two Sisters out there, that you can pick up and read for yourself. But aside from the supplementary material, we don't really know a whole hell of a lot of about her other personality, aside from the face she chooses to let us see. And only by inference, it's not so much, it's mainly through secondhand accounts that we get to know more of Celestia's personality, her habits, her her interest, her hobbies. So we know that Celestia likes cake. How do we learn that Celestia likes cake? Well, we learn it because of that screenshot that we got from the Full Free Press from that season. Was it season 2, I think?
Yeah, that was near the end of season 2, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was near the end of season 2. We didn't even learn that from Celestia herself. We learned it because of, a photograph that we got from the Cutie Mark Crusaders, basically acting as paparazzo. So it really is kind of more along the lines of, I would like to get to know Celestia, and like, yeah, we know she learns. We know she likes cake, but what type of cake does Celestia like? I mean, does she?
We need a Celestia cake episode. Nothing but Celestia eating cake and reviewing it.
Hell, I'd watch it, but yeah, that's my point. Is I would like to get to know Celestia on a more of a personal basis, and we just don't really get to see it that often. And this particular episode with Celestial Advice is kind of where we get a little bit more of that personality that we really want to know. And like I said before earlier in this just particular episode, yeah, we've seen Celestia, kind of wearing the queenly mask. Every time we see her, she's usually that sort of prim, proper, sort of, regal air about her. She's always carrying herself in that sort of calm and collective style. But this particular episode just shows her that, hey, yeah, she may be a princess, she may be that sort of, it's kind of funny because the fanon is actually so divorced from actual canon characterization. But I love how the fanon takes Celestia as this sort of god empress, and the show actually kind of seems to go out of its way to show that no, she isn't anything like that. She's just, even though she is a head of state, she is still just a regular pony deep down, like everyone else. And I loved how this particular episode went to show that, in the sense that, hey, she actually had her own little freakouts just like Twilight did. And when we actually saw her walking back and forth, pacing back and forth, threading over about, hey, she could be eaten by a manticore, or maybe she can fall into Tartarus, or worse, what if she doesn't get involved, getting friendly with everybody at all? And then we actually see the guards kind of like in the background, just sort of nervously glancing at each other.
Yeah.
Like, are we supposed to say something?
Yeah, should we get involved? He's like, what the? No.
The church damn bucks likes a view.
But yeah, just the fact that we even got to see this is something that I really love, because that just further cements that, hey, no, Celestia is just a regular pony. She just has a lot of responsibility, and the fact that we only see her for about maybe a few minutes, either going to work or coming from work or being called out because of some situation that happened to rear its ugly head, is just, I really wish we got to see more of a time where she actually gets to relax, and significantly relax, as opposed to just being able to be called in and used as like a sort of a sight gag, like that one episode where she was supposed to come in for a tea date with Twilight or something.
Yeah.
And she's just sitting there at the table. She doesn't say anything. She's just there. and it's one of those things where kind of like where Tim was mentioning in the chat room, where everyone has their own comedic moments. Celestia actually lends herself well to that comedic moment, simply just by being present and just raising her eyebrow. She doesn't even have to say anything. She's just I just wish we got to see more of that. It's just that's
and that really is just one of the best things about this episode. It's just that development and character building we get for Celestia here, and like you said, her going through kind of the same stuff that Twilight did, in terms of her and her relationship with Twilight, and worrying about sort of how she's going to do on her own, but also it's just having such an emotional character moment between her and Twilight, when she admits that she didn't want to send Twilight away because she was afraid of losing her, like she would go and make other friends and just forget about her. much like Twilight's going through. I mean, that's a pretty emotional kind of character moment between the two of them as characters. That was really kind of a touching scene.
I really have to go out on this, and this is more just my personal view. So I don't really want to go off of saying this is my own personal headcanon, but I really get the feeling that this isn't so much of a master-student relationship between Celestia and Twilight. This is more of a mother and daughter kind of thing, and this is only because of going off of the idea that we know that Celestia has been around for at least 1,000 years, acting as the princess of Equestria. We don't know how long she's been, around even before then, but we can pretty much infer just by the evidence that Celestia is really fucking old. Forgive my French. But the thing is, from what we understand, Celestia doesn't have, as far as we know anyway, at least as far as canonical sources go, but Celestia doesn't have any biological progeny. And so she probably views her students as sort of the children she never had. And I kind of get that feeling that Twilight is actually the closest that she's ever gotten to officially having an actual daughter, barring just straight up adopting her officially.
Mm-hmm. It was also nice kind of seeing her directly in that kind of teacher role there, as actually with the students, because that's not something we've really seen, as her teaching Twilight and the other students there, as they try and learn magic. In the past we haven't seen that kind of more connection that she has with some of her younger, what's the word I'm looking for? Younger citizens, I guess I could say. But it also just really went to show just how much Twilight really means to Celestia as well, specifically. More, like Mr. Ben said, more than just sort of a student. I mean, and really becoming more of a friend, a good friend to her as well. Yeah, I mean, I guess it could go either way, Kletu. I mean, for me, it would make more sense if this was after Twilight had gotten her cutie mark, because that's when Celestia first noticed Twilight's abilities. So it would make sense that this would, because that was her test back that we see her taking back in the Cutie Mark Chronicles. When she gets her cutie mark, that was a test to get into Celestia's School of Magic, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. It's been a while since I've watched that episode. So it would make sense then that it would be after she had gotten her cutie mark that she's in Celestia's classroom, and Celestia's, already knows of her abilities, of her magical abilities, because Celestia in this flashback is talking about her magical abilities, and we see her magical abilities blossom when she makes that big plant. But then seeing her, failing at really kind of really making that connection with her friend, with her friends, and being more focused on the magic. So I'm more down to just make that be a minor continuity error rather than Celestia teaching her before she got her cutie mark, because I don't really think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it could happen. It could she could, the young unicorns could have a class with Celestia even if they're not actually, they're one of her actual students. But I think, to me, just given the context of it, it would make more sense if if this was after the events of Cutie Mark Chronicles. I didn't even notice. I assumed that she had her cutie mark. I didn't even notice when I was watching the episode.
Yeah, I didn't even pay attention to that either. I'm actually gonna have to go back and check those. You know what? Actually, I think Derby Booter might already have those screenshots uploaded. I'll have to double check. I mean, I know this fandom. It works fast, so.
Extremely fast.
And another interesting is this really shows Celestia both as someone who kind of had a lot of the ideas that we thought, like a grand plan that we kind of sort of, you know, a lot of fans that kind of think she has throughout the show. Like a lot of things are just all part of Celestia's big gargantuan plan. But at the same time, showing her to be very unsure about a lot of things. Like she isn't just, I can't even say the word. She doesn't always know exactly what's going to happen. Obviously, this shows her being very worried about where she's going to send Twilight, what's going to happen, is she going to grow distant from her, and all that sort of stuff. But the episode then also shows that she knew of the rest of the main six before she sent Twilight away. Again, showing that she did actually have a plan to bring them all together, and not just by chance that they sort of all met. But I think it's a little more than that here, and it's just something she's really struggling with, and that's another really beautiful thing that I liked about that little shot where we see her kind of looking up at the moon there, and she's kind of between a rock and a hard place, trying to decide what to do. She doesn't want to send her away like she did with Luna. She doesn't want to lose her like she did with Luna. And grow distant like she did with Luna. There's a lot of comparisons with her and her relationship with Luna and her relationship with Twilight here. But she also knows that if she doesn't send her away, she's never going to understand about friendship like she has to do. She's always going to be kind of alone and by herself with her spells. I mean, she'll have Celestia, but she's not going to actually be able to go out and have friends. And Celestia obviously thinks that's very important. It's very important. So yeah, I mean, I know you're joking there, but I mean, it is a kind of a good kind of discussion point to have in terms of how she's feeling there, and giving that kind of depth of her feels there, where she doesn't want to send her away, but at the same time she knows it's the right thing to do for Twilight here in terms of in this situation.
On top of that, she also kind of had that concern that it wasn't so much that she was just concerned about Twilight not getting that emotional growth that she needs, but Celestia was also concerned about screwing up Twilight's future, and just kind of making sure that she didn't, mess things up unduly or inadvertently.
And it's nice, and then of course the episode takes all of that and then kind of throws it on Starlight and Twilight's relationship as well, and it's really nice to kind of see how far they've come as characters from, of course, from like the season 5 premiere and even the season 6 premiere, and how close they've become as mentor and protege there. It's a nice parallel, of course, between Twilight's relationship with Celestia, but at the same time with the kind of the different circumstances here, it doesn't have to kind of, Twilight thinks she has to send her away because she's graduated, and that's what Celestia did. She has to go learn more, but really, unlike Celestia sending Twilight away to make friends, Starlight has already made friends. Twilight's done a really good job kind of making that a focal point of her studies and stuff, where of course Starlight's all about that magic, but Twilight's really been pushing kind of friendship lessons on her, whereas of course Celestia really didn't do that before she sent her away. So kind of Twilight thinks it's the same situation, but really it's not, because Twilight's already done that for her and helped her be able to make those friends. And their final interaction, that final interaction between Twilight and Starlight was just like the Celestia one with Twilight, was very very touching and stuff, with with the little dialogue they have, and Twilight saying, yeah, I think you're ready for this, and then of course with Starlight being like, actually no, I'm not, I don't want to leave, and then just seeing Twilight is obviously so kind of ecstatic and happy about it, like, oh, I'm so happy. And he gives her the present. It happens so quick, but that quickness sort of adds to the emotion, kind of how neither of them really want to do this. They just kind of think they're going through the motions of, oh, this is what has to happen. And it was just kind of when Twilight finally gives her that present, and Starlight says that she doesn't want to go and whatnot. It's just a very emotional and satisfying sort of conclusion to that episode. And Twilight was pretty adorable throughout the episode as well. And of course, with all the worry that was happening, Discord is of course back in this episode because it wouldn't make any sense for him to not be back after the season 6 finale for it. So yeah, of course, calm down, everyone who was freaking out that Discord wouldn't be back in some way in season 6. He is in the first freaking episode, so yeah. And he was really good in the episode. He was kind of his classic, kind of almost dickish self, but doing it in sort of a good intentioned way. And yeah, I mean it was very funny to see. I really liked his comment about oh, I thought you were going to have her move in with me. Gosh, Twilight, way to not pick up on the vibes I was sending out. Yeah, Discord does kind of what does best. He kind of, and we see this for him all the way back, and when we were talking about like season 4 premiere in Princess Twilight Sparkle, where he has a kind of roundabout way of teaching lessons to Twilight, and does it in very much his own style. Just being kind of dickish, kind of chaotic and funny, but nevertheless still manages to get some sort of lesson across. I don't see how he was forced into the episode. It would have been really weird if he hadn't been there, being that he was part of the group of ponies that saved Equestria in this last, the previous episode. Yeah, I don't know how you could not realize that, but okay. Yeah. See, is there any other character discussion that anyone else has, or anyone wants to bring up for any of the characters? Anyone we may have missed? I mean, it was good. It was good seeing all the other characters again. All of the important characters from season 6, Sunburst and Thorax, as well. Gosh, and this is something we'll talk about a lot more tomorrow, for obviously all battled up. But it's great to see. It's great to see these characters, especially Trixie, being brought on more as sort of main reoccurring secondary characters now. I mean, Trixie was kind of a one-off character, and then she came back and sort of got pseudo reformed, and then was brought back again last season as Starlight making friends with her, and of course has played such a bigger part in the series since then, including the last finale. And it's really cool to see her be continuing to to play a big part in the series now as Starlight's kind of best friend, and we'll talk a lot more about that tomorrow. But we see a lot of cool interaction with them in this episode, and it's nice to see these characters taking on some bigger roles. But she's still very much herself as well, in terms of how she acts in this episode. And but it's obviously she and Starlight are actually really, really close friends now, which is cool. Any other characters or points anyone wants to make about any other characters that we missed? Or we'll move on. Okay, so we'll kind of... I mean, I could stand here and talk about how awesome Celestia's development and Twilight's development were all day here, but I think we've covered the main bullet points of sort of that there. So voice acting, was there anything in the voice acting that really stood out for anyone in this episode?
Nicole Oliver laughing. That's
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I mentioned that earlier, but I have to state it again.
Yeah, it's worth laughing. Mentioning again. She did a really great job as Celestia. It's great to hear her, have more speaking lines as Celestia, and she did a really good job sort of telling that story. And it was really good to hear Tara sort of as in Twilight is in freak out mode again. Sort of when she gets that her voice kind of gets a lot more higher pitched, a little closer to Timmy Turner, and and starts shouting like, "Oh my God, I'm glad to hear that side of Twilight again. And that back and forth she has with Spike is in those fantasies, I guess that she has.
Yeah, Kelly Sheridan was really good here, both just as Starlight and just also, I think, like in a minor character as well. Everyone really did a top notch. Hell, even Kathy Weisler as Spike. I mean, just doing that train of thought just gets derailed. That imitation of Rarity.
Yeah.
Because she Kathy Weisler also did voice G3 Rarity as well, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, nice little bit of a meta reference there as well.
Oh, that Rarity impersonation was so great. Everyone's got to do a Rarity impersonation at some point.
I'd try one, but my voice just is too deep to actually allow to do anything feminine.
And also, John Delancey, he ended up doing this season anyway. I think we've already kind of touched that on TWIP, I guess. But as always, John Delancey, good work.
Yeah, and really take a look at the I'll post them in the chat room here, but take a look at the actual credit list. I mean, like the voice actor credit listing for this episode is ridiculously long, mainly because of all of mainly because all of the continuity we have and all the returning characters from last season. Of course, you got the main six. You got Discord. You got Celestia. You got Starlight, Sunburst, Thorax, Trixie, Garble, and of course Ember. Also both come back. So I mean, there's a lot of these really small voice parts especially a lot of the fantasies that Twilight's having that are brought back in addition to all of the new characters from season 6. So it's just a big, it's only a 22-minute episode, but it has one of the larger voice credit listings. I'm really hoping, character-wise, I'm really hoping we see more Sunburst this season, because I was a little disappointed we didn't see more of him last season. I assumed he would be probably part of Starlight's group in the finale, but wasn't. Because I mean, I think he's obviously one of Starlight's other friends that she has, so I'd like to see him be more kind of included in that group this season. Yeah, there was a there's a funny, well, a couple funny Starburst comics that came out from Twilight's fantasies after the episode. Yeah, Twilight's totally ships Starburst.
Just hope that spell doesn't go out of control in Twilight. Like it's not PG rated fantasy are materializing.
Yeah, yes, Tim. It was at that moment that a meme was born. It's like, yeah, that line's not going to be misconstrued in any way. Not by this
line
fandom.
Can be taken out of context, as I like to say.
Even in context. Yeah, it was great. It was great hearing Ember again. I hope she has another appearance this season. I was hoping she'd appear this season, and I wasn't expecting it like this or this soon, but. See, so we can move on now to the humor. This episode had quite a bit of humor for a season opener. For it, a lot of emotional parts, but it still had a lot of great humor. I think one of my favorite visual gags was definitely Discord's Groucho Marx kind of glasses, flying onto Thorax as he teleports away, and they just kind of go boop and just fall on. And he doesn't even Thorax doesn't even react. He just suddenly has the glasses on. It's just the comedic timing right there was so good right before the cut.
Like the fact that like when everyone was getting their medals or their the friendship hearts of courage or whatever the medal was called.
Equestrian Pink Hearts of Courage.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was it. The Equestrian Pink Hearts of Courage. When everyone was getting their medals, Discord just literally decapitates himself. He just pops his head off just long enough for the medal to slip around his neck.
But that
Typical
was
Discord.
definitely overshadowed by fucking Luna trying to get the medal over Thorax's antlers. Just making all these faces like, oh, come on.
And the camera, and even after all that, the camera stays off, so we don't actually see how she
just hear a pop.
hits it on.
And it's funny because directly after that, when it cuts back to Luna, Celestia is walking over, and Luna just has this look on her face like, don't you fucking say anything, Celestia. Like she's like, oh god, I just embarrassed myself in front of everyone.
And see, it also might have been a bit of self-depreciation as well over how the changeling designs kind of went over. So, because I understand that a lot of people kind of didn't like them at first.
I don't know. I've never really personally.
I didn't care for them.
It's nothing spectacular, but.
Speaking of changeling designs, did you notice if you look really closely, their eye isn't just one color. If you look really closely, they actually have a faint iris and pupil. If you look closely.
Yeah.
Can't tell. I'm looking. I can't tell if that is an iris. It's hard to tell. It could be an iris, or it could just be the light, kind of shining off the ball of the eye. It's kind of glistening. It's hard to tell.
Say, love how Spike was just keeping Starlight distracted as Twilight just kind of teleported into like right there at the beginning. She's just scanning the wall for like getting dimensions for the mirror. And Starlight knows something's going on behind her, but like Spike's just trying his damnedest just to like not get Starlight to turn around.
So what are you wearing right now? It's like, stupid. Poor Spike. Oh my! But I also like how that kind of plays into at the end when Twilight's presenting the mirror to Starlight. She's like, It'll fit right over your right over your dresser. Believe I measured. she's fucking adorable.
One of my favorite favorite parts of the episode was just when Twilight was telling Spike, like, I don't know, how can I I forget the actual, I know I have it written down here somewhere. Give me 1 second. Here it is. What if she runs into a Manticore? What if she gets pulled into Tartarus? Or no, that's the wrong one. That's another one. But one of the favorite ones is where Twilight is saying to Spike, she like Celestia knows where, and Celestia standing right behind them says, "I wasn't aware. I was an expression, an appropriate one, of course." But
I like how they actually did that too. Oh, that was perfect. And speaking to the quote you read earlier, how she goes through all these things that Celestia is going through and worry about are stuff that Twilight actually winds up doing in this series.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't even, that's actually funny because that's a good point. I didn't even realize that until you just pointed that out. But yeah, she does run into a Manticore and she does fall into the Tartarus. So okay. One of the things that I also liked was during Twilight's flashbacks, or not flashbacks, but like the image spots, when they start going off and when they start spiraling off into her neurosis, kind of twisting them into bad endings. One changeling kind of transforming into Starlight and berating other changelings, including summoning this gigantic fly swatter and just smacking the others around.
I love and speaking of voice acting, I should have mentioned this there. Freaking her voice, Starlight's voice acting, right there. Kelly Sheridan just blew that part out of the water. Just what are you like? Are you like bugs or what? That's such a great fucking line. I laughed so hard when she said that. That, and also her and Ember doing those, like, broing it up right there. Hey hey Ember, yes, what's up? They both did such a good job at that.
Bump.
Yeah, but voice acting wise, they did such a good job there.
So yeah, just being just a couple of obnoxious bros.
Yeah. So Spike's like, that's totally not how either of them act. It's funny kind of seeing how Twilight sees some of these people. Twilight just sees Ember. Someone's like, yo, what's up, man? Yeah, it's gonna go down flying into the lava pit, yeah.
I actually kind of half expected Amber to just sort of start doing some sick shredding on a skateboard out of just freaking nowhere.
She just pulls a guitar out from behind her and starts just wailing on it.
Yes. Whammy bars and everything.
Yeah.
This is one of the little minor things, but I kind of love how after Discord miniaturized himself and started taking a bath in Twilight's teacup, when he teleports out, it's kind of like you don't really notice it, unless you're like looking at it. But Twilight just sort of levitates the contents of the cup and just dumps it into a nearby flower pot.
Like, yeah, not. I think it's the second time she's done that. I remember her doing that before as well, or maybe that was Rarity. I do definitely remember someone doing that before.
Yeah, I remember someone doing. I don't remember who did it, but yeah, we have seen something.
Yeah, I'm pretty
like
sure
that
it was.
before.
I'm pretty sure it was Rarity. I forget what what scene it was though, but but that was really funny. Twilight's like, yeah, I'm not gonna drink that now.
Yeah. And then just another meta joke with like the show itself just kind of trolling the audience that it's going to stagnate with like 3 more seasons of Starlight getting friendship lessons.
I had 3 years of season 10 confirmed.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt pointed something out to me a couple of days ago that I didn't realize, is that we should be getting episode 200 next season. So there is going to be an episode 200 of the show. Assuming that next season is 26 episodes, and I don't know why it wouldn't be. Also the reference to Clawcella, which is a fairly timely reference as well.
Yeah.
And Discord's fucking cheese joke. It's one of many cheese jokes to come. It was a very Gouda joke. Yeah, Radio Dog. I forgot about that Radio Dog. Garble, like, who you, Twinkle Star, who of course is another name of another background character in the show. And then Starkle Lightstar. That's what we need. Everyone needs to call Starlight Glimmer that from now on. Starkle Lightstar. The ride never ends, Waterstar. The ride never ends.
I also love how both setting up and cleaning up Pinkie Pie just sort of randomly summons it down. She just pulls the cord from the ceiling and just bam, party started.
And the episode's like ending stinger caught me off guard. I was expecting the episode to end there, but then it cuts to black, and then it cuts back in, and Pinkie Pie comes back in with that vacuum cleaner, which just goes wildly around the screen and cleans everything up. It was a nice little kind of comedic exclamation point to the episode there. I always like when they have those like sort of Pinkie Pie related stingers at the end of the episodes.
Say I do too, yeah.
It takes me back to Magic Duel, where at the end where she stops the iris out from going in and comes down and is like, where's my mouth? And then Twilight comes back in and makes her mouth reappear and takes a deep breath and then cut to credits. It's still one of my favorite endings to any episode in the show. Castle cheese. Also, as Twilight's going through all these fantasies and all these freakouts, when we get to the final one where she's talking about sending Starlight to study with Sunburst and stuff, and right before she gets to the point where she starts saying "but," it cuts to Spike and it's like, "Here we go," and he's like 3, 2, 1. It's just like this little hand motion right as she starts to kind of have her doubts and start freaking out again. It was just a classic kind of Spike moment there. And of course, then Celestia's line, and if you're still worried, you can always make her write you letters. It's just both a funny kind of show meta joke, and also kind of a little glimpse into maybe one of the other reasons Celestia has her write letters, so she wouldn't lose touch, worried about losing touch with her. Oh God, all these cheese puns.
Corcon's soul.
Oh yeah, and did we mention Celestia's fucking laughing? I think the best part of that is it's used as the cliffhanger to cut to the commercial before the episode's final act. It ends with the laughing and Twilight saying, "Are you laughing at me?" And then just that's the commercial break. Oh, that one laugh just brought so much needed more character to Celestia, though.
Oh, I agree. Just like I said, that was probably my other favorite part, was just hearing Nicole Oliver as Celestia just laughing her ass off. It was just great.
Yep.
Just love that. We need to hear her laugh more.
Yep. See, any other humor that we missed for the episode that anyone wants to mention before we move on? Yeah. Trelestia returns. In terms of the animation and visuals, there's a couple things I specifically I wanted to mention. First off, on the topic of something that's more humor related, is that the Flurry Heart cuckoo clock that Starlight and Sunburst made.
Yes, that one.
And the other thing the other thing I wanted to mention was all the photos in Twilight's mirror. I don't know if someone can quickly grab a picture of it, so I don't have to mess around with it, of just the overview of Twilight's mirror where we can see all the pictures, because there's a lot of really cool pictures. First, I really like the art style in it. It's not just the show style. They're kind of hand drawn, and they have their own kind of cartoony style to them, and I really like how they look. But if someone can just pull that up for me real quick and post in the chat so I can see everything, because I really want to point stuff out, because it's some really awesome continuity nods, because we've been talking so much about continuity in this episode. There's some really awesome continuity nods in those photos there. I know that I believe someone, DM12 or someone, posted the other one as well, Starlight's.
He posted one.
Okay,
he posted Starlight's.
That's Starlight's mirror there. I'm talking about Twilight's mirror, but we can talk about Starlight's mirror too, because that has a lot of continuity as well. Mainly with last season, we see all of her photos from last season, and most of these here are pictures that would have been taken during what episode was it? The one where Twilight kind of does the spell on all of the main six. While Twilight's away. It was
give me 1 second. If
every little thing she does, that's what it is.
DM12 got it. No, give me 1 second. Here it is.
So every little thing. So the pictures here on Starlight's mirror, and the link that DM12 posted originally was, we see Rarity, her helping Rarity with sewing. We see her with Fluttershy. We see her with Pinkie Pie helping bake and stuff. All of those are direct continuity nods to last season's every little thing she does. We of course see her in a really, really awesome. I love that picture of her and Trixie in the upper right hand corner there. That's a really, really nice style to it, and I like it. And of course, we see a picture with all of the entire group from the very end of the season finale last season, sort of a group shot from that we saw actually in the episode there, kind of redrawn. So that's some nice continuity there from that. But Twilight's has some really nice series continuity to it, going back a lot later. So we have in the very top, we of course have the opening credits group shot, which is funny to see in show, but there it is. We have Spike there from Gauntlet of Fire last season. You have Owlicious, of course. You have a picture of her and Moon Dancer in the bottom right from Mending Fences. You have a picture of Rainbow Dash and Applejack there, obviously from Fall Weather Friends, with the Rainbow's wings tied up as they're about to start the running of the leaves. We see young Philly Twilight hugging young Cadence there from the season 2 finale. We get a picture of Discord and Celestia. I really like the Discord and Celestia one, kind of showing them. I think that's probably from I'm not even sure what episode that could be from. It's just kind of a general picture of them. I'm not sure if the
It
one
is a
with,
general picture, but I'm assuming that's the one that had the episode with the smooths. I'm going to go off on the limb.
That's
on that
what
one.
I was thinking. Yeah, it might have been something from the season 4 finale, but I'm thinking it's more from the smooths one. I'm not sure if the Rarity and Fluttershy picture in the bottom left could be from anything specifically. I don't remember Rarity wearing that get up in any episode, but I could be forgetting something. And then of course you got Pinkie Pie, throwing a party as well. But I just really like a lot of the continuity in those images, and it's something that's just on screen for a couple seconds, but just the time that the storyboarders and animators went to put those continuity into the images on Twilight's Mirror, much like we saw in Castle Sweet Castle, where we have a lot of the continuity in the chandelier on Twilight, Twilight's old tree in her castle, much in the same way there. I really wanted to point that out in terms of animation, because that's some nice, in both of those mirrors, some great extra work put into it. And again, I really like the style. It isn't just like cropped images from previous episodes. They're actually completely redrawn things in a slightly different style, so they look different than just a screenshot from the show. I really like it. Yeah, not really much to say about the animation otherwise for that. I mean, this isn't an action episode or anything particular. It's a very character and emotional episode. So there's not a lot of, crazy animation or effects or anything. I know there was some new magic effects, I believe, in it. Of course, the scene where Starlight and Sunburst get sucked into that kind of whole magic spell kind of thing was good.
You fools, you divided by 0.
Had some really nice storyboarding in it, though. Very, very nice imagery, especially in Celestia's story was really well storyboarded. With her looking up at the moon, on the mountain, looking up on the mountain over Canterlot there as she's thinking, and that whole scene there and all of the emotion both in that scene and at the end of the episode with Starlight and Twilight, I think were really well storyboarded. Well, in terms of the images, I doubt that those were actually in the script specifically. That's something that would be either the images in the mirrors would be something probably either the storyboarder would have drawn in, or the one of the layout people would have put in there. More than likely, kind of both the storyboard and the layout artists would have more to do with the visual continuity there. Okay, so let me go on, so we can move on to the next thing here. Oops. Okay, so obviously we're not going to be talking about the song today, as that is in the second episode, so we'll be getting to that tomorrow. But we do have a lot of scores. So obviously the next tomorrow's episode is really a lot about the song, but this episode has a lot to talk about in terms of the score here. We start off right away and at the beginning of the episode with a little drop of Princess Twilight Sparkle's theme as she's talking with Starlight, I believe, there. But we'll go to the second track here to start out with. This is the music that's backing the scene where Twilight and Celestia and Luna are handing out the equestrian pink hearts of courage over to the Starlight and all of her friends from there. So this track features some really awesome reorchestrations of some of the previous themes from last season. It starts out as Twilight is making her speech. William Anderson uses the more of a teacher than you think cue, which appeared in that track back in last season's premiere at the very end of it. So you might recognize it from the end of that track. It was also used at the very end of the season 6. At the very end of season 6, at the very end of the finale, concluding the season. So this season kind of opens up with that same theme. Here it's actually reworked into a march to fit with the whole kind of awards ceremony feel of the scene. So it's really cool to hear this cue in a different style. From there, Celestia will takes over the speech from Twilight, and we hear her motif. She has, and Celestia's motif first appeared in the season 3 premiere, right at the end when she was telling Twilight that she had passed the test there. We've heard it multiple times in seasons 4, 5, and 6, including last season's premiere and finale as well. This one has a little bit more bass hits to it, and this version of it again to kind of match that whole very pompous award ceremony sort of feel of it. So let's go ahead and listen to this track here. So there's the march reorchestration of that, and hopefully you recognize that theme from the end of season 6 premiere and finale. Here's Celestia's motif. From there, we get to the part where Twilight is watching Starlight kind of celebrate with her friends, and Celestia comes by and comments to Twilight, "Isn't it nice just being able to watch your students shine and succeed there?" So this is a shorter track, and it has a really nice woodwind melody during the beginning of the scene here before Discord enters and brings with him some of his score. There's that woodwind theme there. And here we go to Discord's themes here. See, so we'll fast forward a little bit and we'll get to the part right before the second commercial break, and Twilight kind of Spike asks Twilight sort of where are you going to send her? This scene, this track here starts with the Princess Twilight Sparkles motif and then kind of builds on the emotion from there. as we get to that question as what Twilight's going to do from here. Let's see, so from there we get into Twilight's fantasies here, and the first one, of course, being sending Starlight to the Changeling Kingdom to help him there. So we kind of start with this little kind of wacky, bouncy kind of cue, as Starlight and Thorax both kind of are trying to teach the Changelings using their horrible acting. But then the score, of course, takes a kind of a little more sinister turn as the fantasy does as well. This is a good place here, and now we're gonna go to the bad part of the fantasy here. From there, we go back into the Dragon Kingdom next, or the Dragon Lands, and that brings back with it their very loud, horn-driven, bombastic score that we heard a lot of back in their episode last season for Gauntlet of Fire. This also managed to work in some of Starlight's leitmotif loosely into these tracks here in Twilight's fantasies here. Those woodwind flourishes there. There's sort of a little bit of Starlight's motif being worked in. Especially as Twilight starts to freak out there. And as Gerbil takes that dive there, we're working a little bit of electric guitar in there as well, which is nice. So finally, in terms of Twilight's fantasies here, we get to the Crystal Empire here. So as we enter the Crystal Library at the beginning of the scene, we are greeted with Sunburst's bouncy motif. Very bouncy and kind of geeky, and we've heard this for him in his past appearances, including the Season 6 premiere where he first first appeared with it. Then as the kind of scene takes that dark turn, the score follows and becomes more dark and sort of magical and highly dramatic and action-packed as we get to that climax of this scene with them being pulled into the portal or whatever it is they make. There's Spike counting down. I really like this here. And from there, we get to the really good tracks and the really emotional heart, the emotional center of the episode and of the episode score. Starting here with Celestia's story. So this is the backing score here for all of Celestia's story here. And I just really love all of the music in here, especially this at the very beginning when we first enter the flashback and we see Twilight and her friends and her full friends. In school, we get this very lovely kind of childlike score that we've heard kind of similar tracks to for flashback scenes when we have a bunch of the main sixes as younger versions of themselves here, using guitar, some keyboard, and bass as well. It's very similar instrumentation to some of the earlier episodes of the show and some of the early score of the show as well. It's really, really beautiful. Has a very similar feel to a lot of the old lesson music, lesson scores, lesson motifs from the show as well. Then after that part, Celestia begins to talk about the decision she has to make. And as she's on top of this mountain overlooking Canterlot, the score becomes very grandiose and emotional. So she kind of looks up to the moon and realizes, she has to send her protege away, and just you get these really high pitched violins to kind of tug at your heartstrings during that point. And then you get to the final conclusion of the scene with Celestia admitting to Twilight that she had a hard time kind of letting her go, and that Twilight taught her as much as she taught Twilight. And so we get some really lovely new emotional score for that scene as well, which kind of works in a little bit of parts of Celestia's motif as well. The track then ends at the very end of this track. You'll hear a piece of score that we haven't heard since the season 4 premiere in Princess Twilight Sparkle. It showed in you should recognize it from that episode. It's during Luna's banishment suite. So the whole flashback in that episode where Luna and Celestia are fighting is from specifically the part where Celestia is lying on the ground and Twilight's kind of crying over, and Celestia gets, kind of wakes up and kind of gets back up and stands back up. So you should, if you remember that scene, you should recognize the score at the very end of this track here. But this is a close. It's tied for first with the final track of this episode in terms of my favorite. But I really love all the score in this one. So here we go into that. Okay, we're going into the flashback right here, and here comes that wonderful childlike score. I love this part. Now we get a little bit more emotional here. There's a little bit of Celestia's motif there worked in. And that there was the cue that was in the season 4 premiere there for it. So yeah, that one was great. I love that track. It has so many great parts to it. To back that story, usually the backing music for the flashback scenes and stuff like that is pretty good, and that does not disappoint. So we got 2 more left for this episode here. We finally get to Starlight's graduation ceremony here, which begins with a kind of a simple clarinet melody as the princess talks about Starlight's graduation and sort of why she's thinking about having her graduate. And then more brass is kind of added as she talks about Starlight's accomplishments. This then transitions into Starlight Glimmer's motif, which was first heard back in the season 5 premiere for both her and the village. We heard that you'll recognize it instantly from that episode, and it's been used for her. A reformed version of it has been used for her throughout season 6. So a kind of a very happy, very not unsure feeling, because the reformed version in season 6 is kind of has this very unsure feeling. It's like dun 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 dun. It kind of hangs a little bit. And matches sort of Starlight's very unsure nature about what she's doing and if she can actually be sort of reformed. Here we go back to the very happy version from the town, and it's very, very. It's a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot bigger here. It has a lot more feeling to it. It matches kind of Starlight's accomplishments that are being said in this scene very well. So you'll hear that at the end of this track here. And here we go into Starlight's motif here. And this version here added a little bit of that acoustic guitar into the background for this episode here. And that brings us to the final track of this, and something I really want to call my favorite. It competes with Celestia's story here, more in terms of sort of just what William Anderson and Kelly Davidson sort of did with the score here. So this is when that final scene where Twilight's, is talking with Starlight that final time, and kind of, Twilight, Starlight turns away and then comes back and says, "No, I'm not." And Twilight gives her the present. As that whole final score there, it starts out with a very soft, emotional string piece, as Twilight first presents Starlight with the present. But after Starlight kind of comes back and says, "No, I don't want to leave," and Twilight gets really excited. It brings back one of the show's one of my favorite themes from the show. It's a very, very grand version of the Magic is the Key cue. This particular track, we first heard this cue back in the season 4 finale in the track Magic is the Key. That's just after Discord gives or around the same time there when Discord gives Twilight her key in that episode. It's also appeared since then many times in the season 5 and season 6 premieres. But here, Marie Manus has actually gone and reorchestrated it here. It added a lot more emotion to it. It didn't quite have as much emotion in it before, but here for this final emotional scene, it really, really packs a punch through the use of the additional piano and chimes in it, as well as some additional strings and choir for it. It's just a great way to end the episode and start the season, and I really, really love how this one sounds, how this repeated theme that we've heard in the show before sounds in this episode at the end. So it should be coming up right here. There's a nice intro to it with the kind of choir to fade out there at the end there and pretty much end the episode, into the scene there. So that's one of my favorite motifs, one of my favorite themes from the series since ever since the season 4 finale came out. So always happy to hear that one used again in the past couple of premieres. It's actually, I believe it's been used in both season 5 and season 6 premieres, and then of course in the season 7 premiere here. Really nice, and it has a really nice reorchestration of it there at the end, so really nice. So just fantastic music. And the next episode tomorrow is a little bit lighter on the score. It has a really nice emotional track at the end, but of course we have the song to talk about for that episode. But this episode here had a lot of score in it for just a single parter episode. Usually the 2-parters have a ridiculous amount of score in them, but just for one, this one had some really good stuff in it. A great way to start the season there for it. So we'll talk about more of that stuff tomorrow. There it is. So what does everyone think about the episode here's theme and moral?
I believe the moral is basically would be a good moral here. I think Celestia herself said it. Just because people have left the nest doesn't mean that they'll never have. It's like they'll never not have a place in your heart.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
It's interesting because it's kind of complicated in terms of the kind of the moral of it, and really the theme of it and the moral is really almost directed more towards parents than more than towards the children of the show. There's a lot of morals that are more directed to the children or maybe directed to kind of everyone, but really a lot of this stuff is directed towards a lot of parents who might be watching the show as well, in terms of letting go and let someone who you care about and looks up to you, let them go on your own, and worrying about if they'll succeed and how they'll do, and if they might you lose touch with you, or something like that, or you might lose that connection that you had with them. So it's a really good thing. It's not like a very specific moral, like don't do drugs or something like that, but it's still a very kind of good one for especially for parents. But it also has a lot to do where, you might not just, about letting people go and letting them, succeed on their own, but also a lot about you don't necessarily know what they might want or what might be best for them, because this whole episode kind of revolves around Twilight thinking she has to send Starlight away. But in the end, Starlight doesn't want to. She doesn't think she's ready, and she doesn't want to go. So another kind of other thing there about, just because you might think sort of what is best for someone, they might, think something completely different. And it's really up to them and how they feel and what they want to do that's important. It's kind of interesting because it kind of shows two sides here to a coin in terms of both how Celestia and Twilight's relationship and what happened to there, and Twilight and Starlight in terms of sort of how they handle the situation, sort of what was best for the person. I mean, Twilight obviously didn't want to go to Ponyville and try and make friends or anything like that, but Celestia kind of forced her to, and knew it was kind of best for her. And in the end, that obviously was the right decision and worked out. But in this case, it wasn't the right decision for Starlight and Twilight. And Starlight wasn't ready, and in the end, Twilight wasn't ready either for it. So kind of shows two sides to it, and how complicated sometimes these situations can be. Yeah, Twilight. Well, of course, Twilight accepted Starlight's choice with open arms because she was definitely totally down for that. She obviously did not want to lose Starlight either. I really like I really like what they've done with Starlight in this show, and kind of how far that they've kind of brought her over the past couple of seasons here, and her and Twilight as well. I know. I guess I personally, I know a lot of people hate her, but I personally just really, really enjoy it. So I think I know what a lot of people will say for this. Favorite parts and any concerns for the episode.
Well, I've already said my favorite part, but I'll mention it again. Twilight, I should say, Celestia just kind of breathing to laugh her butt off, and then like right before then. Her saying, "I wasn't even aware I was an expression."
Yeah, I think if I'm going to pick something really specific, it's going to be Celestia laughing, because it epitomized everything else I liked about that whole situation and scene. Just getting to see more of Celestia. If I want to go a little bit more broader, I just love the additional characterization and backstory that they kind of gave Celestia and her relationship with Twilight. And just providing additional context and showing her struggling with stuff, like the same stuff that Twilight's struggling with, and showing that backstory about how she saw Twilight struggling and was really having a hard time letting her go, even though she knew that's what she had to do in order for Twilight to make friends, and get away from just doing nothing but studying books. I just loved seeing that more Celestia, and I think the laugh perfectly epitomizes sort of what I liked about that, and just seeing a different side of her. I know I saw Jim Miller made a comment that they enjoy being able to flesh out characters more as well, and being able to do different things. And I'm sure the writers and stuff feel the same way about getting the opportunity to do stuff like that. And it's really it's been 7 seasons. It's about time, but this really felt like the right time as well. Like it made sense in the context of the story about what Twilight's struggling with, to have Celestia finally kind of come back and talk to her as not just a mentor, but as a friend, and kind of give her more, backstory about how she was struggling to send Twilight away and was afraid that she would be losing Twilight. Hopefully never. Hopefully never, Klaatu. Yeah, I really still hope that, this was a great start. I'm happy we got this this episode and seeing more and seeing more of Celestia. I'm still really hoping for a Celestia-centered episode, either just on Celestia or with Celestia and Luna, sort of just them as sisters. Because we got a little hint of that in episode 100, which was really fun to see them kind of bicker over who was supposed to bring the present, and I'd love to see more of that, or even just something more focused. Because we've seen a lot of Luna, obviously, but I'd love to see more Celestia as well. So hopefully we'll actually get that Celestia episode at some point. We got at least 2 full more seasons here between the rest of season 7 and season 8, so where it could happen. But this was a great start, and it really confirms to me that I want to see more of Celestia as well. So, final thoughts and overall feelings, conclusions from everyone on Celestial Advice?
I agree. I really wish we saw more of Celestia. Yeah, I would love to see at least just one slice of life episode with Celestia just hanging out with Luna or something. Just the two of them being sisters.
Yeah.
I would love something like that.
I think this was a great way to start the season. It was definitely a different way. It was a lot more. It's weird because I've been saying this past couple, when we talked about the past couple of seasons premieres, but this one takes it even farther, where they've been less action based, like we got with the season 1, 2, and 3 premieres, and even 4. Season 5 was a little more, cerebral. It still had a lot of action in it though, but it was a lot more kind of psychological in terms of Starlight. And then last season, it was still a 2-parter, but it focused a lot more on, of course, Starlight. It was a little bit more comedic. It was it wasn't quite as action oriented, and focused more on building Starlight's character and kind of setting up the rest of the season with her character. But this one, I mean, that had like the whole Flurry Heart thing, and as causing a source of tension and stuff. This episode here had no action. The source of tension and the climax of the episode was all on, this emotional connection between Starlight and Twilight and their relationship, and sort of where it goes from there. And it was definitely a lot different. It was an episode that you could almost, picture happening sometime in the middle of the season, as just one of the season's 22-minute normal episodes. But having at the beginning was really, you pretty much had to. It picks up right where the season 6 finale left off, and it was a good place to start this season on. So it was a lot different, but it was really good. It was definitely one of my favorites now, and a really good start for Joanne and Christine as story editors for the show here. Yep, and it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be longer, either. It was just really well paced. It hit all the right notes. It allowed us to get a lot deeper into Twilight's mind, into Celestia's mind, and kind of what they're going on about. And we'll get to this tomorrow, but it's these 2 episodes are separate episodes, and they're not really a continuous story, but they still play off each other a lot. It's almost like sort of how the season 6 premiere had the two stories going on at the same time, where you had the Starlight Glimmers story with her and Sunburst, and then you had sort of Twilight and the rest of the story dealing with Flurry Heart, and they converge in the end. Here they kind of split it up in the same way, where the first episode here, while both of them focused on Starlight, the first episode here is more with Twilight and Celestia and them dealing with that, and the second episode, we go back to Starlight and seeing her, with Trixie on it. Yeah, this is really strong. It's just like I'm watching watching this episode, and I'm like, okay, this show is. I've been watching this show for what, like almost 6 years now. The show's been on for over 7 years, and we're in the seventh season of the show, and it's still really, really good. I mean, I personally think the show is still really, really good and is at some of the best episodes that it's been doing on its run, which is, I mean, for me, the trajectory of the show's quality has just, gone up since the first season, which is something that is fairly unusual for media. And I'm glad to see it, it's still really good, and this episode really impressed me. It seemed to have gotten a pretty good reaction as well, generally, from people. So it's really nice to see, the show still staying fresh, still having new stories to tell, and different characters to explore, and the writing still being so good. And again, I think it has a lot down to just, not being afraid, one, to move things forward, not letting the show stagnate in terms of its story and its characters, not being afraid to allow characters to, accomplish stuff, not being afraid to introduce new characters or new adversaries or new ideas into the show. We could have been 7 seasons in and still doing, friendship letters to Celestia with Twilight, if they didn't want to move anything forward, which would have gotten really boring. But thankfully that hasn't happened. And also not just in the story, but also lack of stagnation in terms of the shows, like especially with the writing staff. With Joanne and Christine, who were, just brought on in season 5, are now running the show story-wise. And, of course, Josh Haber was running it last season. He was just brought on at season 4 for that. And, so just introducing some new blood. And, of course, we already talked about last season how like half of the episodes were written by people that were new to the show within the past 2 seasons. And, like, more than a third of them were new to just that season. So not being afraid to bring in new writers and fresh ideas to the show, and looks like hopefully they'll continue that this season. We only know of a few people who are coming back, and we know that this week's episode, I won't say anything else in case anyone doesn't want to be spoiled, but this week's episode also does feature 2 new writers to the show as well for this weekend. So I don't know, I still find this show so enjoyable, and it's insane to think about how long I've been watching it now.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard to believe it's been going on for 7 years. The show debuted October of 2010, and it's 2017 now, and just yeah.
The ride never ends. 10 more seasons. Yeah, I mean,
we've got a whole pile of friendship of what us in stories of back of in case we run out of ideas.
I mean, and the good thing is there's so many characters, they've built in so many characters into the show that, I mean, there's still so many stories. I mean, here we are, 7 season ends, and we're still talking about, give us, I hope there's a Celestia episode. So there's always more stories for them to write with the characters. They haven't limited themselves to just the main 6. Which is one of the reasons I really like the introduction of Starlight to it, because again, not limiting yourself to the same 6 characters for every single episode. And of course, last season we got our first episode without any of the main 6 in it at all, when we had the On Your Marks. This is the longest running Hasbro show now, isn't it?
Yeah, this is
so it would be, yeah.
It's yeah. But I was just saying, like, not just like the longest running Hasbro show, but like compared to G1 and all, including G3, G3.5, and 3.6. If we were to combine G1 and then the previous G3 ones, I think G4 has currently been beats even those out, all those 4 combined.
I mean, I guess it depends on when they're defined as starting and ending. I guess no, it's the longest show.
Look that up.
For it, and I mean, gosh, for hitting, with season 8 confirmed and hitting 200 episodes next season, it's just like, oh my god, it feels like we just were in season 5 with episode 100.
Okay. So
and these
the
are and these of
original
course
release-
and these of course are 222-minute episodes. It's not like some Teen Titans Go bullshit where it's like, oh, episode 200, but they're only 11-minute episodes. So it's actually, you got to cut that in half. It's technically only 100 episodes.
Okay, well, looking in on this, the original My Little Pony ran from April 14th in 1984 to September 23rd, 1987. My Little Pony Tales, which could technically be considered G 1.5, was only in 1992, just for the 1 year. So, and then as far as G3 goes, G3 never really had an actual TV series. It just had the animated features such as like Runaway Rainbow, Minty Christmas, Princess Promenade, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is the longest running pony series to have gone on, at least as far as a TV series goes. I just couldn't help it. That was just more of something I couldn't help but think of. Just wow, okay.
Yeah.
I just had to double check because it was just dumb curiosity than anything else. Anywho.
Well, anyway, thank you all for joining us today for Equine Episode Examination for Celestial Advice. Again, we'll be back tomorrow for our next episode, episode 83 of Equine Episode Examination, where we will discuss the other episode that premiered this past weekend, the All Bottled Up. So the Starlight and Trixie episode, some interesting stuff to talk about there. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow, Wednesday, at 5 p.m. again, Eastern Daylight Time. So we'll see you back then, just a day. And of course, next week, we'll be back on Tuesday at 5 p.m. again for episode 3, A Flurry of Emotions, on next week's Equine Episode Examinations. So thank you all so much for joining us here. It's been a lot of fun talking about this. So bye-bye. Have a great afternoon, night, whatever. Bye.
City of Oaks.
Later.